Hi, my name's Chris Candy, and this is the Never Not Run podcast. Or no.
Or do the NNR for.
This is the Never Not Run podcast. I'm your host, Chris Candy.
And I'm Mark Nieto.
All right, you want to start it up?
Hear that sound?
I heard that. What, you cracking a beer?
I'm cracking, yeah, a non-alcoholic athletic brew. So the branding really worked on me. I couldn't help myself.
Man, what a great way to start a pod. Just snap on into it.
Yeah, something to quench the thirst.
Oh my God, Mark, how's it going? What's been going on, dude?
I'm doing good. I was just out of town. I was in North Carolina and had a chance to check out some really cool spots out there, some good trails, and also the Ultra Running Company store, which if you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, you should definitely hit that spot up because it was...
Are they from out there? They're from out there?
Well, this place, I don't know. I don't know if it's a chain or if there's just one, but
right.
I think it's just the one store, but you walk in and it's like Mecca for ultra running. There are like belt buckles everywhere from all the big races. They had somebody who did Badwater. They had their number encased in a big glass display case with the shoe, this like Hoka in the case that they did Badwater in. So yeah, it was just an awesome place. Seemed like really cool people. People were super friendly. And yeah, one of the guys was like, "Oh, so you're training for anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm training for the Yosemite half marathon." And just nothing, just no expression. I think he was probably thinking like, "Yeah, I did that this morning, buddy."
Yeah, I know. It's so sad because we get we work so hard on these races. And I guess that's the whole part of and point of the pod is it doesn't matter what you do, but you do come across these people who they just eat marathons for breakfast at the end of the day, and when you go into the community of people who are putting in 20-mile runs just casually, you do feel a little minuscule compared to their feats.
Right. Yeah. Whatever it is, if it's social media or Strava or something like that, it's hard not to compare yourself. But, I think what we're going to get into later today, I think Aaron and you had a really good conversation about just how positive it is to get out and do those short runs. Just the act of being outside is so important. And and I think that's ultimately what this whole thing has been about, right? Is us trying to kind of promote the idea that movement, getting outdoors, it's just so important to our well-being.
No, absolutely. I think what I've been thinking of is, the Barkley marathons are going on as we speak. And it's fun, spend some time. We have some posts up on the Instagram channel of some photographers who are out there taking photos of the race. And you just see some of these people attempting these incredible feats. And you do kind of realize there's this other stratosphere of runners. But to get, how unbelievable that is and how possible that is for anybody and a lot of people, it is equally just important to get out there and keep moving. And one thing I found, especially I did interview Aaron Bobrow, and I'll explain him in a second, is that it's just infectious talking about running. After every pod I've been doing, and every time you and I, Mark, we talk about it, I just get more excited to get out there and do anything. Like we said, we'll be getting into some training for the Yosemite half that's coming up in May. But it's exactly that, just enjoying the foot race, the endurance of it, and really the mental runner's high we get from it.
Exactly.
So today's guest is, and this is episode
6.
Episode 6. That's right.
They're hard to keep track of.
I know. We're on episode 6. And we've got Aaron Bobrow. Aaron is a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He's an established artist. He works in different forms and materials, but outside of his really, really incredible art career, which is actually impressive to say the least, he started a design firm and a consulting firm called Windpipe. He's worked for all kinds of various companies, from Heron to Outdoor Voices. He's also consulted with companies such as Hoka and Merrill to do various projects. And, again, he's just a tech nerd in regards to gear. And so we get into some really fun conversations about materials and shoes and the progress of running and where he finds it in his life.
Yeah, I think if you are a gearhead, if you are into the gear at all, then this is going to be the episode for you. And what I really like is that this juxtaposed with the Norwood episode really seems to encompass the spectrum of people that we want to feature on the show, and just, the people that are just like getting out there for exercise, and then people like Aaron who are kind of approaching running from like a designer's background, or have like a total kind of like very thorough, very deep knowledge of the technology of like the design of what it takes to get what it takes to build and develop some of this running gear. And so yeah, it was just really enlightening to hear you guys kind of go back and forth about that, and even stuff that I never think about, right? Something like he mentioned French versus Italian fit in the shoes, and just all the minutia of stuff that we take for granted as runners, as athletes, as just people.
Yeah, it's deep. Definitely get a cup of tea or a shot of espresso and sit down with this one, because there's a lot of detail you got, and it's amazing. I just really enjoyed doing this one. We recorded it up in his bird's nest in the Hollywood Hills. So ladies and gentlemen, episode 6 of the Never Not Run podcast with Aaron Bobrow. Never Not Run podcast. We're going to talk for 44 hours. I'm your host, Chris Candy, on location at an undisclosed location in the Hollywood Hills, maybe. And I'm here with my good friend, Aaron Bobrow. Aaron, we say in the pre-interview, is very accomplished at a lot of things. But most importantly, being here, and I can tell you to your face, Aaron, you're incredibly detailed and specific and like highly tuned into existence. You are very focused on detail in regards to, it can go from the coffee you're drinking to the shoes on your feet to the way that you communicate. And I'm just really glad to have you on the show. And, we have kind of a history that's like oddly matched up into the kind of athletic sports weird world running. And I want to talk about all of it, but welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This is my first time being on a podcast.
It is?
And I'm ecstatic. And I can't wait to get going.
Oh yeah, it's already started. We kind of like start all of the shows off with like this one question. And I'm curious about your relationship to the mile. What was the first time you ever had to run a mile? And like where was that? When was it? High school? Break it down.
My first mile, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I went to kind of a hippie elementary school, and I moved to the burbs to go to high school. And so the first mile that I ran was freshman year of high school at Redwood High in Larkspur, California. I don't remember the time, but for some reason, I think the best time that year was 7:14.
So,
but I don't think that was the first time.
When you're in high school and you're going on to college, like what are you doing like from like a sports angle?
Okay, so here's the deal.
Yeah.
I grew up playing basketball.
Okay.
I got cut from the basketball team on my birthday, freshman year of college, of high school,
right,
at Redwood High School. I kept playing basketball. I made JV. I actually made varsity eventually. But I started skating, and I got really into I was always into sneakers since I was born, but I started working at sneaker stores and I guess collecting sneakers
to
resell. And then senior year, I was asked to be the goalie for the water polo team.
Really?
And so I became the starting goalie of the water polo team. And it was insane. We had double days. And I guess I should have probably, growing up, I was like, my dad tried to get me to play tennis because he played tennis.
Okay.
I played baseball and I was pretty good at like racket sports, not so good at basketball.
Right.
I mean, I was good, but like I thought I was better than I was.
Right.
And same with skateboarding. So I sort of shied away from the sports that I had natural inclination for, which maybe some of the listeners can relate to.
Oh, I wanted to be really good at hockey, right? And I was terrible at it. You know, growing up Canadian, you know, hockey is like a big part of like the DNA.
Right.
And I remember like one day, I think it was the last like hockey practice I ever had in the 3rd grade. They let me play goalie, and that was like the most fun because you get to wear all the gear.
You're right.
And I sucked. I was so bad. And that's even the same with skateboarding. I'm like not good at skateboarding. You know, I'm like, I can do it, you know, I can roll around.
Sure. Same.
But I was never, you know, like going up and doing like, you know, 9 stairs or handrails or anything like that. Like I was just like trying to get my like board to slide along like a curb or like a low ledge. Like that was usually my world.
Yeah. I mean, I think you know, maybe 180 to 6 stair. And I got a really good heel flip. That was about it.
Do you find that like, because I feel like I've talked to you about like sneakers, and I think skateboarding is like really, I mean, that's where it starts, right? Like,
sure.
Like the earliest skate shoes, I think like really dictate where like my like desire for a lot of aesthetics come from. I constantly like look at things and they remind me of like the Costin S color scheme, or like, you know, this is as ugly
100%.
as, you know, or like even like as how like prolific, like the, like I didn't wear Circas because Circas were like so, like they were so.
I didn't wear Circas. We didn't, in Northern California, there was not a lot of like shorties, Muska, Circa. Love.
The thing with like the first Circa was the color scheme was really crazy. It was
the gray with red.
Yes. Like it was just like, it stood out to me. And like the zipper was very prominent. Like it was an aggressive zipper. Like the whole like tongue.
Were they doing double tongues also?
No, that was Muska's S shoe. And I love that
with the teardrop ollie pad.
Yes, exactly.
And the original Velcro weed stash.
Yes, that's like and it was really puffy. I think I had
the navy with the white.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like even like when we were talking about, I think I was talking to you about On running shoes, and they were like nice enough to send Mark and I a couple pairs.
Cool.
And they've been like really fun to try out and run around in. A very like well-made shoe. They remind me of Xavier, which was like Nike's.
Wow.
Yeah, which was like Nike's like attempt at skateboarding. I think, didn't Nike own them?
So they did own Xavier.
Yeah.
I think this was the same era as Vita skate shoes.
Yes.
Started by Dill and Nodis.
Yes, that's right. And then there was also Sheep. Do you remember Sheep?
Sheep.
That was Ed Templeton's company. He had a company called Sheep. Maybe that was like only like a SoCal thing.
I don't remember Sheep so much, but I do remember the transition out of that into like Force and Creative Rec, and then the whole Nike SB, the first Nike SB thing that I think about a lot these days with the popularity of Dunks reemerging. I just wonder if people sort of know about the Richard Mulder, the Gino, whatever the other two were.
The Reese
Danny
Forbes,
Supa and Reese Forbes.
Yeah, the which one? The all denim one was really nice. I think that was a Nodis one, or maybe that was Reese Forbes. Reese Forbes was the wheat one.
Reese Forbes was wheat. Danny Supa was the Knicks colorway. Richard was the all white with the sort of cyan, and then Gino had the best color, which was the perforated. Was it perforated navy with the black suede and the gray swoosh?
That was the first pair I had.
That's one of the best shoes of all time.
Yeah, the perforated is like, is really unbelievable. It's also a really buttery shoe.
It is a buttery shoe. This was also the time of the first, what we called them, like the baseball mitt ones. But they were like that brown leather.
Well, there
remember?
was the Carhartt, and then there was also, that one was the baseball mitt was a high top, right?
Yeah, it was a high top.
The wheat. That was
wheat, or there was another word for it, but it's escaping me.
Well, I think like for skate shoes, like, yeah. So then from there you get into like, when's the transition for you? Because like I've seen you over the years, like experimenting with all different types of like shoes, right? And that like makes total sense as we get older.
So, I guess to answer your first question, I remember being in Sears in Oakland, California with my mom around the time of the earthquake. And I remember her putting like saddle shoes on me and being like, I want Weebox. So I think I've had the bug for a long time. And I grew up spending a lot of time with my mom, and my mom likes to shop. And so I basically spent a lot of time at Ross, Marshall's, TJ Maxx, Macy's, Nordstrom's Rack, waiting for my mom to come out of like Talbot's outlet or something.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think my first interest in sneakers sort of came from like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm going to check all this stuff out. And I just remember going into stores and just like, when I was really young and just like touching the Adidas torsion system on the bottom, or, understanding Zoom Air differently, or the dots of the Alpha Project, or all of these sort of like the different contours and textures and shape and form of footwear, I think became an obsession for me. And the tactility of it triggers different times and memories, and sort of as you, it was just, for a lot of people in our generation, I think 85, which is my birth year, was the first year of the Jordan.
Right.
So, if I'm not mistaken. So, every year there was a new Jordan, it was pre-social, so there were no color ups. It was pre-ID, so there was no customization. You were really at the mercy of the designers. And I think that era, early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s was sort of the peak of industrial design and sneakers.
Right.
And you have a lot of form over function, but to a young consumer, you think that the form is function.
Sure.
And it wasn't until many moons later that my vantage point on footwear sort of evolved to be ruthless.
Yeah. I had this period, we're close to age. I had this period where I started getting into running, but I would never consider myself a runner. Like I lost like a ton of weight running when I was in my like early 20s.
Right.
And I didn't really know what shoes to buy, right? I didn't know how it worked. I was so like accustomed to skateboarding culture and like mild surf culture that like I was like aware of like picking the wrong thing, like I thought like that, cause like those cultures are so cliquey, especially at that time. Like they're not as cliquey anymore now. Maybe surfing is, but like I didn't realize like how inviting, right? Like the running world was, or like just maybe athletics period. But do you remember, like, did you have a period like that when you were in your early 20s and you started running or doing anything like that? Or if not, then when was the beginning where you started saying to yourself, like, I'm running now?
So, okay, the beginning of running is long-winded, but I'll sort of speed it up. I didn't like running. I was more of like a long distance kind of guy, not a lot of fast twitch. I grew a lot at weird times, so I'd have shin splints, and like speed was never my thing.
Right.
Endurance more so. And I grew up, my parents would always try to make me go hiking, but I wasn't interested. I just wanted the sneakers.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like go, to the mall or go skate or hang out with my friends or whatever. And then throughout college, I skated, didn't really run or do much except for like party and learn.
Yeah.
And that pretty much goes to my early 20s. I think I started running, actually. I started running in 2012.
Okay.
Maybe 11, which is when I started following Arsenal.
Okay.
And I think I had a pair of Asics Keanu 13, maybe 12, maybe 14. They were like the shiny red with white mesh, pearlescent. I bought them at the basement sale rack at Paragon. And I remember my friend brought me back a pair of Arsenal shorts from London.
Okay.
And I remember getting really excited about wearing the Arsenal shorts with the running shoes. Because I think I found the endurance of the soccer athletes to be something that probably would be good to balance out.
It's incredible.
The late nights. And so I started running, but I still smoked cigarettes at that time.
Okay.
And I was pretty exhausted. So, a mile under 9 was pretty exciting.
Sure.
And New York, the distances weren't that big. I never really did above 3 or 4, maybe 5, maybe max 7 miles.
Right.
And I kept running, once a week. But it wasn't until I guess I quit drinking about 5 years ago when I started really getting into running.
Right.
And channeling my energy into something else that I could control, that I've never gone for a run that I regret.
That's the truth, man.
It's hard sometimes to start them.
Sure.
But once you get going, I've never regretted going for a run. And there's very few things that I can speak that confidently and that succinctly about, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So I've found it to be
I feel like with running
really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I agree. That's like, for me, is like, I can confidently say if I'm having a bad day, I will feel completely different if I go on just a 3-mile run. I'll feel so much better on the other side of that run. Whatever's bothering me in the funk is gone. It melts away because there's something that happens to me around like 2.38 where I'm like, I'm good. Like I can just keep going. And it's so addictive in that manner.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's really, at the risk of sounding cliche, I think one of the most important things to get our country healthier we could do is to teach at a young age in public school that the mind is the same thing as the body.
Sure.
And there's no disconnection.
Yeah.
So it's what you eat, how you train, if you train, how you move, all of that stuff affects your mood and your anxiety and your cortisol and all of that stuff. So for me, somebody who does have anxiety and my mind sometimes moves at a lot faster than I can articulate.
Sure.
When I run, the locomotion releases things that I'm procrastinating and allows this sort of web of ideas and relationships and even logistical stuff just shakes out.
Right.
And when I'm running, thinking about something that perhaps has been giving me a little bit of stress, when I run, I'm able to work through it in 30 seconds. And the answer is very obvious when I'm moving at that speed and when my heart rate is that high. It's like because you can't stop, or, I don't like stopping. It's sort of like it's like a homeostasis of fight or flight. So like it's a calmer fight or flight.
Yeah.
But you don't have that, like you can make decisions about it's just clearer.
Right.
My thinking is a lot clearer and I'm not allowed the luxury of putting things in different boxes.
Right.
Like everything just shakes out.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of things that you can do Yeah, that's really beneficial to me. And it's also, I think, New York is like a walking city.
Sure.
And the sidewalk is the pulse of New York City. It's the egalitarian threshold where everybody's rubbing shoulders. So when you're running there, I found it to be really kind of exciting and invigorating, and you get to see the city from different perspectives, and you get to access it in a different way. And in LA, it's a whole different trip running in the city because of how big it is and vast, and the sidewalk isn't so much doesn't function in the same way. The road does, but it does have the mountains, and that is a whole different trip.
Yeah, I've known you in LA to be like a big Angeles Crest guy in regards to just like you showing me new zones up there that I'd never even been to, and like going on some like trails and and funny enough, like we'd be like on like a trail run and I'd be kind of gassed and I'm like, where are we going? And you're like, I have no idea. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But you have like a confidence and like almost a comfortability with the Angeles Crest, which is like really, really amazing because it just, it feels so backyard to you.
I've been coming to Los Angeles, I think since college. My college girlfriend was from here. So, we would go back here for the holiday or something. And I never looked at those mountains before.
Right.
For 15 years. And then I forget when it was like visiting, I think at some point in 2017 or 18, I went up there for the first time and I was just like, oh my goodness, like the Chaparral, the the burnouts with the Subis and the WRXs and the Porsches and the Pinarellos and the BMCs and the BMWs and the cycling and the cars and all of it, and how, it was kind of the first in-town park built for the suburbs and exploration by motor vehicles. So it's a pretty unique place, and I think it's slept on, and I hope it keeps being slept on. But
we won't tell you how to get there.
We won't tell you how to get there. Just take the 2. And yeah, I don't know. I love it up there. It's you can just get lost and get back home before dinner time. Yeah, I've really enjoyed exploring up there. I was actually just up there yesterday. It was really beautiful. There's snow and yeah, it's an amazing place.
Yeah, LA is like always like amazed me in its ability to just constantly put you in awe. And running and trail runs are really great ways to like view a lot of it. And like I just it ends up these pathways that have been here for years and years and years before us, like revisiting them on your feet is really fun. I love like with running where it's like I'm my own car. Like I can kind of like go anywhere. Like if I really wanted to, even what I'm wearing right now, I could get to Santa Monica. It would hurt, but I could do it, And
well, can we stop there just for 1 second and do a tangent?
Sure.
I do work in apparel. And I do love gear.
Yeah, I know.
More than most. I also run in Dickies cutoff shorts sometimes.
Right.
And I prefer that. And I think when you run and you run enough to where your body says, I'm achy.
Yeah.
I'm on my 3rd pair of shoes in 4 months.
Right.
I'm choosing this over hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
This is more valuable to me than, going to an opening or going out for dinner or whatever. I want to be here when the sun goes down. I want to be here when the coyotes come out. I want to be here when the light changes, and you start to realize that you need very, very little in order to access trail running or running in general. Anybody can run in anything. And when that's what I love about it. And I love the high end gear. I run in the Nike 4%, whatever. So, but I also like that you can also just do it whenever you want with nothing. And there's not a lot of sports like snowboarding or, cycling, even basketball. You got to have the J's or or the surfboard, or, you know, the independent trucks, or the Swiss, or the, you know, the Burton AK, or whatever. Running is really like a commitment to not stop moving your body, one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't really have a regard for anything else except for the commitment to like create locomotion.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes up every once in a while here, but that is like definitely for Mark and I, like one of the main things we very much dig about it is, you know, like I think I remember one time a friend of mine his father passed away, and it was like very all of a sudden. And I remember, I might have brought this up on the show before, but it was like, I found out like on a Friday with like crazy rush hour traffic, a bunch of people were getting together down in Redondo Beach to have like drinks.
Yeah.
And I was living in mid city, and it was like pre-pandemic. It was like, oh, like I'm going to be sitting in traffic for 2 hours to get down there.
Right.
And I was like, well, I have 4 hours to kill. Like I might as well just run down there. And I did. I just like put a backpack on and had my shoes and like brought a change of clothes, and fortunately had a shower to use down there, and I just did it.
Oh, those showers. That's a wild run. Do you remember when I called you after I did that random 18 on a Sunday?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that really briefly. Yeah. Like, so I get a phone call from Aaron, and you went for it.
Yeah, I went for it. I hadn't run in like a week. And when I first moved here, because it was the pandemic, I was just running all the time. My times were like crazy for me. And I was running a lot. I was putting in the miles, and I was just like, you know, I've never run on the West Side. I love El Porto.
Yeah.
So much for body surfing. And I just like El Porto because there's like the desal plant, the airport. Like it's just all my stuff. And I was just, I'm going to run. And something about running, which is also interesting, is like, it's kind of like driving a car. Mm-hmm. You know, for me now, like the first 3 miles, I don't really feel anything. I run really slow. I'm like pretty trash.
Yeah.
Around mile 6, the engine turns on.
Right.
And so there, I just kept looking at the Palos Verdes till I was running south. And I was like, I'm going there. I'm going there. I'm going to keep going there. I keep going there. I run through all that crazy shit. Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe an aquarium there.
There is. Yeah.
Families, all that kind of stuff. Just kept running and running. And then when I got to the end of it, I was like, I got to go back. And man, I was gassed by the end of it. And
for the listeners too, just so you know, like,
my dog was in the back of the car.
Oh no.
Well, the window was down, but she was definitely antsy, but she was a baby at the time.
If you've ever run in the beach community of SoCal, you know, in the Santa Monica area, if you look down south, you will see like a jetting out area where basically it seems as if the cove, the beach, whatever you want to call it, ends. And that is where Aaron ran to. It's basically the end of the Strand path, the bike path.
It's the end of the Venice Beach Boardwalk.
Yeah,
right?
It just ends there. So to get to that place, you have to go through, and that's an interesting thing. I remember actually I did to name drop Sam Griesmer yet again for his bachelor party.
Hi, Sam.
We did a long walk from that place up to Dockweiler Beach, which is kind of where you started. Yep. But on a tangent, on a side note, those communities are so strange.
Yeah, they are strange. The architecture down there on the beach, boy. Whoo!
It's like bonkers.
Woo, that's another episode.
Yeah, that's a totally other episode. But I know that like when you're in a long run, like something that like is visually upsetting can really hit you hard. And if something like a building is too confusing, I find like I have to be fed like baby food visually, you know, beautiful beaches or, you know, just interesting like visuals or nature. But once I see like the postmodern, like Frank
turquoise
Gehry,
glass.
Yeah, turquoise glass, you know, Florida.
Glassed in fake fireplaces outdoor. A little
I think,
Gray Pergo.
yeah, I really like the Red Bull hut. You know, I want to puke. It really assaults me in a very specific way. Unlike if I just walked by it. You know, if you're at mile 13 of a thing like that, it really plays. There was this place, there still is. It's called, I think, the Shed. It's over in Marina del Rey, or I think it's the Shed or the Shack, or it looks insane. And every time I'd run by it on my 20-mile training run, it would bother me like to high hell because it visually just assaulted me. I wanted to pivot because like I wanted to get into kind of where you are now and a bit of how you got there. But let's go and like start talking about Windpipe and exactly what Windpipe is. What is your kind of idea for it, and how's it doing?
Windpipe at first was defined by what it wasn't.
Okay.
I work with different apparel companies and, you know, providing design and creative direction and consulting. And so Windpipe is the name of that agency.
Yes.
Recently, you know, we shot some editorial, we dropped some product. We have, you know, a couple collaborations coming up. We have new product coming out this year as its own brand. And then on the agency side, we're still working with, you know, a few different clients in the apparel world. But where Windpipe came from, so, well, we're on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So we both like to talk.
Exactly.
Some people have said I'm full of hot takes. I didn't really know what that meant until I moved to Los Angeles, because in New York, everything is a hot take. People have thicker skin. But out here, there's not that many hot takes. So where did Windpipe start? I started training jiu-jitsu in either the end of 2018 or the very, very top of 2019. I think it was earlier in 18 at Clockwork in Manhattan above the Wendy's on Broadway and Bleecker.
Okay.
And I remember my first class, it was rear naked choke day. And I remember just giving my neck up, just getting choked relentlessly, like 25 times. And I couldn't talk. And everyone, oh, you have jiu-jitsu strap. It's like beginner's class. You know, you'll never get that again. And I'm like, yeah, right. I'll never get that again. I'm never giving my neck up. What's training? What is this? You know what I mean?
Right.
But what was being compressed was my windpipe.
Got it.
And it was this word that not only being corporal, part of the body, but also, you know, it serves many different functions. It has a, you know, wind, which has patterns but is erratic and also creates sound. And then pipe, which is, you know, a formal object that when constructed plays music or makes sounds. It also moves around fluids like water, sewage, oil, soda into your mouth, all sorts of different stuff. You know,
Right.
We got a lot of different pipes. And for me, you know, connecting the natural with perhaps the industrial, like a steel pipe, was it was a word that it snapped, it fit. I hadn't heard it used before. And going back to the jiu-jitsu thing, it really taught me to shut my mouth. Or at least appreciate being able to use my words. And which I think jiu-jitsu does in a lot of different ways. But that's where the name came from.
What are the, for you, like within running and jiu-jitsu, because I did want to talk about jiu-jitsu, what is the shared experience and what puts them both in like their unique categories?
Well, running is like excellent training for all kind of sports, anything.
Sure.
Especially for combat sports,
Right.
Which are so cardio based because you're engaging every part of your body and fight or flight.
Right.
And they also teach you how to be calm while still moving.
Right.
So there's a lot of overlap in that. And I can't think of two things that like go better together than like running and training jujitsu, because when I do still get the runs in and training, I mean, my week is so much different. So I think they kind of feed off of each other for me.
Yeah, I never trained jujitsu, but I was always impressed with like what came along with jujitsu in regards to, you have to black out at some point, what is it? Tap or snap?
Yeah.
Like
you just have to like sort of get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. When your right knee starts hurting at mile 7.5,
yeah.
You can like stop and stretch for a while, or you can kind of see if you can pretend that you don't feel it.
Yeah.
And both work and both are successful.
Yeah.
And you can usually hang in there for a lot longer than you think you can.
Right.
And I think both have taught me about balance and about exertion. It's like if you give someone your arm in jujitsu, they're going to put you in an arm bar in 2 seconds and snap your arm. If you run, say you're doing a 20 in Death Valley and you sprint the first mile, you may die.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's this kind of extreme valuation of risk management and energy resource conservation that I think is in direct dialogue between two of those practices. And it's something along with speaking and using words efficiently and using language efficiently. I think for me, those are really important things that I want to continue building the brand around for Windpipe.
Now, in the past, like when we kind of reconnected, and I've known Aaron for a long time, but I know when we reconnected, I was really into running, and I was really appreciative because you sent me a pair of Outdoor Voices Hokas. You sent me these Clifton 4s.
Yes.
And when I kind of reconnected with you, I'd reconnected with you many times, but I remember very specifically, we were in Colombia at our friend Carlos Moreira's wedding.
Who got me into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, who is a really, really dear friend to both of us. And you were wearing Hokas. And
right.
I remember kind of like...
I was wearing Hokas pre-Deckers. They were the last batch.
From the French company?
They were the French ones, yeah. The gray and black with the gray midsole and that sort of like purpley blue. Yeah, I bought those on Hawaii, actually. I had like a running store by the airport on Maui.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. There used to be a really great running store in Kailua that's not there anymore called B-Fit Kailua. And I remember I went back out there last summer to try and like, running stores are cool because they're just like basically little huts with like a bunch of sneakers and goos inside of them, like not much to sell. And it was gone.
Like one sock brand.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean, to kind of come full circle with it though, like you were working for OV and then you start Windpipe. But I want...
No, let's go back to OV. At OV, shout out to Ty and Tiffany and Teddy.
Yeah.
And all the people that I worked with there. We were getting in, they had already been in talks with Hoka and we pushed that forward. We did, a few different models, Bondi B, Clifton 4. And then we did the Merrill.
The Merrill was a beautiful
which was the Moab,
shoe.
Which was the first time that shoe had been, I guess, looked at through a contemporary lens. It was pretty fun going to Grand Rapids and getting to augment like the gusset and the insole,
right?
And the liner, change the Vibram, thing from yellow to black, do a dusted sole, 3M laces, all the little stuff that you're sort of able to do without affecting the mold. And working in the industry, doing collaborations, a lot of people don't know this, but you can't just make custom product all the time because like creating new molds for stuff is a significant investment.
Right.
And so a lot of times you just play within the existing confines of the model and, you know, tweak it as best you can. But that was a cool project. There were a couple others that were unrealized that we got really far in that were cool too.
I found it interesting too. You were talking about soccer shorts, and one of the projects I remember you did was a soccer short.
Yeah, we did a soccer short, and instead of the checkerboard, we wove it's sort of like an old Umbro block, and we wove the pattern of the jacquard to be based off of like pictures of solar panels, and sort of that blue, almost like mica camouflage and stuff. And that was a pretty cool shoot. We got to shoot it in New York with Issa. Yeah, that was a fun project for sure.
Yeah, and like I know you mentioned it with Merrill, but like a company like Hoka, you go to them and do they kind of say we want to do like this shoe, we're trying to rebring this shoe back in, or did you kind of have access to the catalogs and kind of could go, well, I'm actually really interested in like you did the Clifton 4, obviously. Is that how the process goes, or do they kind of come to you and say, we're kind of like wanting to reinvigorate? Like I know Nike does that. Like Nike will, and like streetwear, say like to Union, for example, a store in Los Angeles, they'll be like, hey, we're like redoing the Cortez. Like, can we do a Cortez colorway for Union and kind of do a limited thing?
I think each interaction between collaborating brands is different.
Okay.
This is we could talk about this for a really long time.
I know.
But what I will say is a lot of times collaborations are born out of companies wanting to exchange their contacts, you know, the email list and share the data.
Sure.
I'll also say that with the rise of Instagram, I think sort of gave the validity for or the proof through like the images that were showing up of a lot of brands sitting on huge archives of desirable product from the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. And I think prior to that, collaborations, especially in athletic and athleisure and lifestyle, in my experience, footwear companies would often want to collaborate with a lifestyle shoe or a hybrid shoe that they thought was the big opportunity. But now we're starting to see that all of the opportunities are different, and the retroing of stuff or bringing something back, or, you know, access to the archive, that stuff, I think, especially after Virgil's 10 project and a few other collaborations, just like opening the archive up to people became more of an industry norm. I think at the beginning it was like, you know, a lot of like shoe companies and collaborative apparel companies are quite isolated from the zeitgeist prior to like peak IG algorithm days. So a lot of times, you know, somebody might not understand why you're appreciating or you're fetishizing about, you know, the 1994 Air Up and like the blue, like, you know, PVC, like reveal font, you know, or whatever it is, you know, they don't find value in that. And I think that, you know, now you have baby boomers wearing Jordan 1s, Dana White's wearing Jordan 1s, you know, you go down to Austin or Pasadena or Marina Del Rey and there's a bunch of dudes in their 50s wearing like Dunks, and it's like really weird. But I think the retroing thing is pretty wide open now, and it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, like a company like Hoka or Ultra or On, for that matter, or, you know, they're not going to go to their silhouettes or their models from like 15 years ago because they're like, why would we want to bring that back? You know, it's like this joke also in the running community, but it's like, you know, you get a really great Clifton, for example, and then they just, you know, they're at the Clifton 9 now, maybe. They just keep redoing it.
Right.
And, you know, I remember reading on blogs like Clifton 1's the shoe. Everyone loves Clifton 1. And it wasn't until I ran in it that I got why people loved Clifton 1. And I was like, oh yeah, it's got everything you want out of a Hoka, but it's got a very thin tongue. It tightens on the foot really well. And it's a way different ride than when you're on like, the Clifton. I think the one, I think you guys did the 4s.
I think they did 3s too.
I think they did do 3s. I think they did
4s.
They did
Bondi Bs.
Yeah, they did. And all I know is that in the running community isn't thought to go back to those until now. And I think they're getting a little bit of that flash of like, oh, actually, maybe we do have something good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these are like pretty big, exciting sort of footwear tributaries to paddle down is Seamless.
Yeah.
And the invention of Seamless.
Yeah.
Which started with Nike Free and EVA and the stacked laser cut EVA that Hoka sort of has made famous and sort of changed and put the industry on its head. I mean, there's just a lot to talk about, like fit. Everybody's foot is different. Yeah, what do you think? You're a runner who runs in Hokas and Ultras occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for right now in a running shoe?
I think for me, it is, I like the shoe to be light on the foot.
Light.
And I run in no socks.
No socks.
I kind of like have this connection with running where I don't want to be thinking about my shoes.
Right.
And so, but I also want to have the benefit, I'm like a 250-pound dude, who's like clonking around, and I can do an ultra, and that feels great. But when you go on those longer runs, it's nice to have the cushioning of a Hoka.
Yeah.
I always felt like with Nike, they have great shoes.
Yeah.
But I just felt like the fit on the foot was narrow on me. I don't know how else to put it. The coverage.
Yeah.
I'm interested in these Adidas Audi 4s. I think they're kind of like the answer to the Free and the Hoka. That we had this guy, not on this pod, but as a friend of mine, this guy Paul Middleman, who designed for Adidas.
Oh yeah, he's a big deal.
Old school Stussy guy. And he was telling me, he's like, I was down at the end of the LA Marathon. I was just like looking around, and I called my friends at Adidas, and I was like, no one's wearing your shoes. Everyone's wearing Hokas down here.
But didn't they develop the Boost midsole?
They did. Oh, 100%.
And the Continental outsole.
The Adidas's contribution to running and footwear is like unbelievable.
But isn't Adidas like kind of like a high level fast guy niche shoe?
That's what it is.
Like some people swear by that one model.
That's the one I'm talking about. Like that shoe,
that's like
I think
the comp to the Nike Streak.
I think that shoe holds the fastest world record right now.
Yeah, it does.
So again, it's like, it all comes down to preference, right? And that's just what I'm looking for. My eyes have been kind of like peeking at Brooks again recently.
Interesting.
Which is totally weird because they were kind of like, for some reason, like a Nordstrom's mom shoe. But I'm just curious, I was starting to see more people like wear like Izod shirts and Brooks.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like not sure where they were. I'm seeing a lot of people wear On. I'm seeing a lot of people wear On who also just like the look of them.
Do they have investment from a Swiss bank? Because
they're a Swiss company.
I am not sure how they seem like they have infinite resources.
They do. I know they've been in the game for a minute. I remember the last time I was at what's that running store out in Fleet Feet.
Fleet Feet.
When I was out in Fleet Feet, one of the lovely assistants who helped me out there was a big Hoka guy who actually spotted our friend Dan, who was on episode 2 of the show, in the Outdoor Voices all white rainbow laces.
Oh, Dan
shoes.
loved those. He asked for so many pairs of those.
He the assistant at Fleet Feet like crooned over those, but later told me that he actually was really into On. So that it all comes down to preference. It comes down to what you're looking for. That's just me, and I go back and forth between Hoka and Ultra. I think Ultra is a really interesting shoe too, but for me that's where I'm at. What about you?
Whew. Well, here's where I'm at. I've been running in Solomon. I think they're XT4. No, first it was XT Quest. That was my favorite trail running shoe of all time.
Right.
And I learned very late, like last year. I don't know who I was talking to, but I learned that was actually a hybrid of two different shoes.
Really?
That was conceived in a retro fashion moment by the Broken Arm in Paris. So I like the idea of being able to, if you're taking a fashion collab, you can run in it if it's a running shoe.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget, like, a good friend of mine, Devin, he used to be a graffiti writer, and he would write in Jordan 1s and in Supreme Jordan 1s and just like didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, and just whatever. And I was just like, this is the coolest guy ever. You know, so I would always just be like, oh, well, these are like fancy from Paris. I ordered them on Essence. I moved to LA. I'm going to run in these things until they don't work anymore. And I'll tell you why I like them. They fit really, really, really good. They fit my foot. I don't have as narrow of a foot as a La Sportiva, which is Italian fit, which is the most narrow, which comes from climbing. And then there's French fit, which is Solomon, and that's a little bit wider. It has that lacing, you know, their patented draw cord lacing system.
Yeah.
And it also has the 4D chassis, which I want to talk a lot about. That chassis, like for me, being kind of gangly, I'm 6'5" and, you know, kind of a string bean. And I need all of the like stability that I can get, especially when running up hills on uneven terrain. And I found that heel cup really, really locks my foot in, and it didn't move. And I could, you know, like when you're skating, you don't want to be skating in a Hoka because you want to feel your skate. You want to feel the board and the grip tape. I like being able to feel the rocks underneath me and to be able to dig in the balls of my feet and my toes and propel myself off of it. And as much as my knees now want me to go back to Hokas and or Ultras, I find that the quality, the finishing between a Solomon and another brand is still substantial.
Sure.
So I'm at this impasse where I don't know exactly what to do. In fact, I started following this brand. I don't know if they follow the pod, but if they do, please send us some shoes to test.
Yes.
I think they're Canadian, and they're called Norda.
Norda. Okay.
And I'm not sure what's going on there, but they're talking a big game. And it looks like they got laser cut upper. They got the Dyneema outward facing language on the fabrics. And they got, I think the outsole looks very similar to the first Under Armour trail running shoe with the Michelin logo. Google that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
I'm kind of curious to try these Nordas because I'm with you, Chris. My knees really want a little bit more cushioning than the Solomon is offering. And they've made comps to the Hokas, and I've tried them, and I returned like 7 pairs of trail running shoes last year just to test. I tried the new Ultra one, all the new Solomons, the ones that Rich Roll was running in, all these different shoes. And I guess for me, the most important thing is how they fit.
Yeah. That's
really it.
I agree. I think
and durability.
Definitely, and you have to like it. You know, it's like it's what's going to be getting you out there. I was talking to Olson, and he was talking about he just bought a pair of like the sandal running shoes, and he's really liking like hopping around in those.
Wait,
things.
what are those called? Shaman?
I can't.
Or mom shaman or
barefooting or something like that. He swears by him.
Wait, did he get Zero shoes?
I think he got the Zeros. Yeah.
The guy who puts like a pound of coconut oil in his hair before he shoots his ads every day.
We love you, Alex.
No, not Alex. The guy from Zero Shoes.
Oh, that guy? I thought you were talking about Alex. No. It could be. I'll have to check in. We were talking about those shoes.
Okay, here's a question. You ever been on the trail or on the path for that matter and seen someone roll up barefoot running? Just like, you know, they got calves the size of a bazooka and they're just running.
No, I always
What's your feeling with running barefoot in public places?
I always see at LA Marathon people running barefoot, and I see, not to fully quote Goggins, but I see people hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Goggins so famously said, I see a lot of people with broken fucking feet too. But I have witnessed that. I think that if that's what you want to do, then do it. It's totally doable.
I see people in Elysian Park doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's like absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think that.
Have you ever heard of something called plantar fasciitis? When I was a young lad, I had Legos and they were hidden in the pile of the carpet. And I remember the sound and the feeling of like nerves crunching on my heel.
Right.
And like having to wear like orthotics for 3 years. And I'm just like, what about like your extremities and like protecting your joints and stuff? Like, we're not all Liver King.
Yeah. We bring it up often in the podcast, but I think anyone who's running barefoot should
see a physician.
They should look into it a little deeper and see if it's really something for them. But I know that people, I have done barefoot beach running. That's a whole different game.
Oh yeah,
that we're talking about, and that's a whole different workout. But I don't know. The Ultra Escalante 2 is the closest thing I'll get to it, and I am enjoying that shoe quite a bit. I've had 2 pairs of those, and the ones that I kind of alternate in and out of, I've been really liking right now.
I feel like if you are supplementing your running regime with working out in a gym, and you want to opt for some thin shoes,
sure,
as we're calling them now,
they're
thin shoes. You heard it here first. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
because like you don't want to lose a toenail dropping the kettlebell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And even just that little thinness can, save you from serious injury. But out there, I'm not there. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not there. I need a little bit more cushioning. And I probably would have stuck with Asics and Brooks, except for they all switched to seamless. And when seamless happened, the support system in all of those shoes evaporated. And it would just be like one heel counter and a bunch of mesh, and then one like EVA, one piece midsole. There was no counters anymore. There were no carbon shanks. There was no stability, and there was like maybe too much breathability sometimes running in New York. At that time where I was living, it's like maybe you don't want your shoe to be like 100% breathable year round. Yeah,
you get some really like wild stuff in there.
I don't think they audited the consumer when they switched to seamless. Now it does save the environment, and it does increase the margins substantially for the footwear maker, because they're not having to hit minimums for materials. They're just making what they need. That was that was a major shift.
Yes.
And
everyone's doing it now.
Yeah.
And it does change the complete game of the shoe. But it, like you said, if we can get into this, but the waste element for making all of these things is pretty hot. And I think anything to kind of counter that moving forward is a good thing.
Yeah. And I think that as we're starting to see coming out of the pandemic, they are adding more support systems, more heel locking. They are making hybrids. Now you'll have, there's a couple Solomons that look like Hoka's, but they fit a little bit better, but they're for that customer, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think people are, getting back to their core elements of, Hoka is cushioning, Solomon is fit, Nike is, heritage, speed, Bill, Pegasus, 4%, Michael Johnson, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Reebok running. I mean, for all the heads, you can remember like DMX and that cushioning system, but I don't know where they're at in the game.
I don't know either. Well, I think you and I need to revisit this on another episode, because we could go on for hours talking about, and I really would actually like to do episodes where I get you and Dan together and we can kind of just do gear check episodes.
Yeah,
where we could
I would love that.
Because I just think your brain is so important in regards to discussing trends, where we're at, where it's come from. I really always love those conversations. But I'll end the pod with a question we always ask everybody. For you, what is your runner's high?
What is my runner's high?
Yes.
When I'm running down this trail in Angeles Crest with my dog, got the AirPods going, listening to something. The sun's going down. I can start to see the glow from Pasadena. And I just think I'm so lucky to be able to move my body like this. I feel like I'm flying. I feel like I'm in heaven. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I think that I took movement for granted for a lot of my life.
Sure.
And not everybody has access to movement or can, and it's like taking that feeling or sharing that experience, that runner's high, that moment when you just feel like 100%, you feel like $1 million. Like how does everybody get there? How do we make sure, people feel that and can access that no matter what the constraints or the scale is? Is it wearable technology? Is it, advertising? Is it community running? Like, where are we going next? Because there is something really special when you feel a runner's high, no matter if it's, on pavement, on the trail, on the beach, on a treadmill, on a Peloton, whatever the heck it is. It is really special. And I think developing methods for sharing that is something I'm interested in working on with Windpipe.
Aaron, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll have all your links and everything in the description.
Thank you, Chris and Mark. I look forward to talking about more gear and more architecture while you're running in the future.
Yep. We will get into all of that. And we have a new foot race in the future in conjunction with Windpipe. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Bye.